Shalom. I'd like to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh Ba'Shem Yahushai. Double honors to the apostles and others of the great millstone who well. All right, this is a part 3 of the lesson, Neo-Babylonian Empire, the rise and fall of Nebuchadnezzar. All right, so in the past 2 parts, I highly encourage you, if you're just watching from the 3rd part, you go and you listen to the first 2 parts where we go into the history as spoken about in basically the books of 2nd Kings, chapters 23, all right, through 25, and then we hit some scriptures all around Jeremiah, all right, and in the Chronicles, which chronicle, all right, the fall of Jerusalem under the hand of King Nebuchadnezzar. All right, so Babylon under King Nebuchadnezzar was a great kingdom. All right, so basically this part we're going to go over the secular history, kind of looking at some of the historical artifacts that that come to kind of the historical artifacts and the things that how do I say this? The things that the historical, the archaeology aspect of it, looking at, what made the king of Babylon or the kingdom of Babylon so great. All right. So great, not that they were great to our people, the Israelites, but great as in, a powerful and mighty kingdom. All right. This is all archaeological evidence that is important because, you have people out there who say that the Bible is a fairy tale and then the Bible is this and the Bible is that. Meanwhile, they have no clue of the depth and the breadth of the Bible. So Babylon under Nebuchadnezzar was a great kingdom, and they had many riches and marvels. And one of those marvels was the Ishtar gates. This gate was this is what the gates of the city would have looked like, except that it was running around the entire perimeter of the gate of the city. All right, so you can see how great this how vast these walls were. These are fortified walls. I'm sure they had watchmen up there. This was like a great achievement for the Babylonians. All right, and then I'm going to read just a little excerpt from the Wikipedia in regards to the Ishtar gates. All right. Right now, the Ishtar gates is actually it's located in what's modern day Iraq. All right, but this is what it says in the Wikipedia in the Wikipedia entry for Ishtar Gate. The Ishtar Gate was the 8th gate to the inner city of Babylon. It was constructed about 575 BCE by order of King Nebuchadnezzar II on the north side of the city. It was part of a grand walled processional way leading into the city. The walls were finished in glazed brick, mostly in blue, with animals and deities of low relief at intervals. These also made up of bricks that are molded and colored differently. All right, so this was a great achievement. Now here we have the other, we have another marvel of the Babylonian kingdom. All right, and this is called the Temple of Marduk. All right, so it's also another name for this. Actually, let me just make a note here. Another name for this is actually the Isagila. All right, and it says here the Isagila. This is from Encyclopedia Britannica, which is their website is actually it's called Britannica.com, and it says Isagila, the most important temple complex in ancient Babylon, dedicated to the god Marduk, the tutelary deity of the city. The temple was located south of the huge ziggurat called Etemeneke. It measured 660 feet on its longest side, and 3 vast courtyards were surrounded by intricate chambers. The whole complex reflects centuries of building and rebuilding by the Babylonian kings, especially Nebuchadnezzar II. The tremendous wealth of Isagila was recorded by the Greek historian Herodotus, who is believed to have visited Babylon in the 5th century BC. Babylon was excavated in 1899 through 1917 by German archaeologists. Few objects of value, however, were found in Isagila, which had been thoroughly plundered in the antiquity. All right, so Marduk is essentially the chief god of the city of Babylon and the national god of Babylonia. All right, so big deal. These things were big deals. These are big. These are essentially. This is equivalent to, for example, certain achievements that could rival these is the so-called white man making it so-called into you know make so-called making it into launching his satellites and things like that, or the so-called white man's buildings, these skyscrapers that tower over, and take just years to build. These are kind of achievements that are similar to that, but not really, because back then these things really took time, and they were very you can tell they were very very intricate, and they really use like top quality materials. Like a lot of these, like the Ishtar gates, a lot of that stuff is gold and things like that. Like this is just a completely different a completely different thing altogether. Um, so now here is a picture of the ziggurat of Ur. All right, so now we're gonna read the Wikipedia Salakia, the Wikipedia entry for the ziggurat of Ur. All right, so the ziggurat of Ur is a Neo-Sumerian ziggurat near the city of Ur, near Nazaria, in the present-day Daikar province of Iraq. The structure was built in the early Bronze Age, but had crumbled to ruins by the 6th century of the Neo-Babylonian period, when it was restored by King Nabonidus. All right, its remains were excavated in 1920 and 1930 by Sir Leonard Woolley. Under Saddam Hussein's 1980s, they were encased by partial reconstruction of the facade and the monumental staircase. The ziggurat of Ur is the best preserved of the known from Iran and Iraq, besides the ziggurat of Dur Utash. This is it is one of the three well-preserved structures of the Neo-Sumerian city of Ur, along with the royal mausoleum and the palace of Ur-Nammu. All right. So these are all just archaeological. These are all archaeological, essentially archaeological, things or evidence, archaeological evidence of the Neo-Babylonian Empire actually existing, and they did construct and they did exist. All right, which is important to understand when you're speaking to someone, or when you are just in general listening to someone talk about how the Bible is this and the Bible is that. Well, they're out of their depth, they're out of their element, because there's a huge there's a huge portion of the scriptures that is, most of the scriptures are, when it comes to the history, are substantiated by secular history that is verified through archaeology, through records, and through historians, even though not all historians are created equal. All right. Another wonder of the Babylonian kingdom is actually the Hanging Gardens. Okay, the Hanging Gardens of Babylon. All right, so now this is going to be another Wikipedia excerpt. All right, it says the Hanging Gardens of Babylon are one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world listed by Hellenic culture. They were described as a remarkable feat of engineering, with ascending series of tiered gardens containing a wide variety of trees, shrubs, and vines, resembling a large green mountain constructed of mud bricks. It is said to have been built in the ancient city of Babylon, near present-day Hilla, Babil province in Iraq. The Hanging Gardens, name derived from the Greek word chromatos, or overhanging, which is a broader meaning to the English word of hanging, and refers to trees being planted on a raised structure, such as a terrace. According to one legend, the Hanging Gardens were built alongside a grand palace known as the Marvel of Mankind by Neo-Babylonian king Nebuchadnezzar II for his Median wife, Queen of Ametis. Queen of Ametis, all right, because she missed the green hills and valleys of her homeland. This was attested by a Babylonian priest, Berosus, writing about 290 BC. A description of that was later quoted by Josephus. The construction of the Hanging Gardens has also been attributed to the legendary Queen Semiramis, who supposedly ruled Babylon in the 9th century BC, and they have been called the Hanging Gardens of Semiramis. Okay, so this Wikipedia entry is actually really good because it actually speaks about Nebuchadnezzar's Median wife, all right, Amitis, Amitis, which in the documents that I saw, you can see here it's actually it's pronounced Amithia, Amithia, all right. So one of those two is actually a Greek interpretation of the name. So Babylon, there's imagery of the lion in the you know in the throughout the kingdom, all right. It's in the walls of Ishtar, all right. There are statues, the lion of Babylon, all right. And the lion imagery is significant because the scriptures depict the kingdom as being a lion, and gold, as you're going to read, is also, which is also important. And there's a quick scriptural reference that I want to touch on because it speaks about the kingdom, the Babylonian kingdom, being known as the lion. You know, the scriptures are just so deep, man, that, you know, it's honestly beautiful, man. It can bring tears to your eyes to how really deep and just completely overarching these scriptures are. So this is Daniel chapter 7, verse 4, and it says, "The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I beheld till the wings thereof were plucked, and it was lifted from the earth and made to stand upon the feet as a man, and a man's heart was given to it." All right, this is talking about the four beasts. All right, and these four beasts, and in the first of the four beasts, or the first of the four kingdoms that are being spoken about in Daniel chapter 7, was in fact the Babylonian Empire. All right, so the details or the breakdown really of the scripture is that the lion represents the Babylonians, but the wings represent the Assyrians. All right. All right. So together, the Babylonians and the Assyrians, they actually go back to Ashur, which are the same people. All right. Then they're in the same land, but they are under a different clan or a different rulership. And we're just going to substantiate that by going into Genesis chapter 10, verse 11. And it reads, "Out of the land went forth Ashur and builded Nineveh, the city of Rehoboth and Calah." All right. So essentially, the Babylonian Empire, the Babylonians, when they took over the Assyrians, they were essentially just taking over a different clan, a different tribe of their own people. Now we're going to go over to Jeremiah chapter 50. All right. Chapter 50, verse 17, and we're going to let off here. We're gonna conclude here, but this is Jeremiah chapter 50, verse 17 through 18, and it reads, Israel is a scattered sheep. The lions have driven them away. First the king of Assyria had devoured them, and last this Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, had broken his bones. Therefore therefore saved the Lord of hosts, the God of Israel, behold, I will punish the king of Babylon and his land as I have punished the king of Assyria. All right. So this is just a nod at the fact that, Nebuchadnezzar put the Lord's people into slavery. All right. And that he will pay for it eventually. Okay. So, hey, man, that was part 3 of the Neo-Babylonian Empire, the rise and fall of Nebuchadnezzar. I'd like to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. Double honor to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who grew well. Hope this lesson was edifying. And until next time, shalom.